Hogsty.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogsty. It is I, Alex, and your host for tonight and for every show because we, got rid of our real host, 3-4 years ago, and now it's just
we got
me.
rid of him. I don't know if we got rid of him. That's
He spaced out and quit. That's what happened.
That's what happened. That's fair.
Yeah, he moved to Colorado, smoked way too much marijuana, and kind of just forgot.
And
now you all.
But we love you, Sean.
Now we're stuck with Dave.
Now you're stuck with me.
Dave was a good host, though.
Yeah.
Or Alex, or what the hell was that guy's name? Sean. Sean was a good host.
Sean was a good host. No, we've had. Hey, I would say of the 12 or 13 people that we've had co-host this show, Steve, like at least 9 have been solid.
Does that include you and I? I don't know.
Oh no. I'm definitely not in that top 9.
I'm not either. I know I'm not a good host.
So I'm thinking I'm like honorable mention just for voices being on the pod.
Well, you're an analyst though, Dave.
I know, I get
host.
that, but I know that's why I said just for a voice.
Yeah, you're not
like
worthy.
Honorable mention of voice. Yeah.
You're not worthy of being a host.
You're probably in that top 10 area. That's the good news.
Of the 10. Most of the people I've liked, we had 1 or 2 that I questioned why the person was there.
Oh, we've absolutely had a few of those. Yes. Yeah. But for the most part, even they were nice people, just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, everybody. It is Combine Week. This weekend is when you'll see a bunch of dudes running in their underwear. I know that still excites some of you, maybe in the wrong way. I don't know.
To each their own.
I'm not judging.
You are judging, but that's okay.
I am judging, but I'm judging loudly.
It's better than having us out there in our underwear doing it.
No one would ever want to see us do it. Also, because it would probably take me a good 10 seconds to run the 40.
I probably, you're not a runner.
That's pretty fast in my eyes.
I think I could, of the 3 of us, I think I would probably win the 40.
You probably would. I have bad shin splints, and I'm overweight at this point, and yeah, like...
All I know, I just pulled a hamstring just thinking about it, so I'm out.
Well, also, Dave, you're 4'10", so you have little tiny legs.
Yeah, but they move. I tell you, they move.
But I'm tall compared to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's me having to walk and run next to tall people, where my legs move 3 times faster than the average short person.
I think honestly I could smoke you in the 40. That's what I think.
I'm sure you could. 'Cause I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner at all.
Yeah, I only run if someone's chasing me with like a knife or something. That's my rule.
The real question is, could any of us beat that? What's the guy that runs the 40? Rich Eisner?
Oh, Rich Eisner. Yeah.
Could we beat that guy? That's the real question.
I don't know what times he puts up. I've never.
I think
he's running 6 seconds, right? Roughly.
That's pretty good.
I thought he just broke in the 5'9" last year.
One year he did, a couple years ago, but he's usually like in the low 6s.
Right.
Yeah.
Now he's actually also like prepping for it at this point. I feel like too.
Well, he is. Yeah, but he's also wearing a suit too.
Yeah. That's the best part. He does it in a suit and wingtips or whatever.
But yeah, he's definitely prepping for it because he has technique down, and you can see that somebody's coached him. None of us have ever been coached. We just get out there and just run. So
right.
Yeah,
but Rich Eisner's also overweight. So I mean,
he's also like 60.
If I can't beat an overweight 60-year-old, there's a problem.
Yeah.
I'd bet on myself for that one.
Confident you could do that.
Yes.
Confident you could do that.
I mean, there was a time I ran a sub 540.
Yeah. Back in my 20s, I looked awkward as heck running, but I was 150 pounds. I was pretty fast. We used to play ultimate frisbee a lot on the Temple practice field, which was AstroTurf. Now that is fun to run on. Hurts like heck to fall on. But running on AstroTurf is a lot of fun. You really fly on that.
So do you think out there, could you beat Rich Eisner in a 40? Let us know.
Yeah.
We're going to keep track of this.
But none of you in shape people. I only want to hear from like out of shape, over the hill people.
Yeah, I'm not talking about a 22-year-old college kid who's listening to us. I'm talking about you guys who are like in your 40s or your 50s, those guys. Do you think you could beat Rich Eisen?
Yeah.
Let us know.
And all you fellow little people out there, chime in. Let's hear what you got.
Yeah, I mean, Dave's a little person. They count. We count. You count too.
We definitely count little people.
It's fun to see Dave's little tiny legs going 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I like to laugh.
Hey. I mean, some of the fastest people in the NFL have been smaller guys. Dale Green
NFL
was like
standards,
5'8"
Alex,
or 5'9" or something.
That's not small that's a little small, but that's not like wee bit. That's not like Dave 4'10", small.
No, it's average height in the world.
I don't know. Darren Sproles is pretty short. I think I came eye to his nose.
I think Darren Sproles, in all seriousness, is like 5'6" or 5'7".
Yeah,
right?
I think that's what he's listed as.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably taller than Kyler Murray.
The average height in the United States is like 5'10", I think. 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
And you will never convince me that Kyler Murray's 5'10". I think Kyler Murray's really 5'8".
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Also, Santana Moss, he's definitely not 5'10". I've seen Santana Moss. I can look over his head.
I stood next to Chris Paul, and he wasn't but an inch or two taller than me.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, the basketball player.
Right. We got a lot to talk about.
And I look up to everyone, so it's all good.
Yeah. Well, when you're 4'10", you're looking up to most people. It's okay. We don't discriminate against you for the height.
Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage is somebody.
Peter Dinklage would look up to Dave. Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. When I got his autograph, we were eye to eye.
Peter Dinklage is such a boring, serious guy. He wouldn't see the humor in any of it, though.
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah, I'll tell you one that would. Brad Williams.
He's that?
Hilarious. He's a comedian. He's I think he might be like 4'5" or whatever.
He's a stand-up comic, right?
Yeah.
He has a whole spiel about laughing at his height and all that.
Yes.
And I've seen that guy.
Yeah, he's only ever done one big special that I know of, at least, but I've seen this special.
He's the anti-Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
Yes.
How'd we get on Peter Dinklage?
I don't know. We started making fun of Dave's height again. And it's been 2 weeks. We got to find something else to make fun of. All right, we should really cover some of the stuff. We got a lot to talk about.
We have legit stuff to talk about today.
Indy's happening. The combine's happening. We can't really talk about what's going on in the combine because there's no measurables. Right now, the coaches and GMs, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, are talking to players. They talked to Williams today. I think they talked to Daniels today. This is the day that they talked to the quarterbacks. And I think they've scheduled to interview basically every quarterback at the combine. I think that corners were yesterday. But Peters and Quinn have been talking to the media while they're out there, and some stuff has come out, especially about the quarterback class, that's been a little revealing. I think they've let one or two things slip. That's not a surprise. Honestly, so Adam Peters in his press conference, he was talking about Brock Purdy, and he kind of slipped and said, now I've got to go find a new quarterback. While talking about Brock Purdy. Kind of a tip of his hand, a little bit, that Sam Howell isn't going to be the quarterback this year.
Newsflash.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. Like, can you feel the world shaking? Can you?
By the way, I've officially started my annual slog through all the college quarterback film tape at this point.
Yeah.
I'll reserve opinions, but it's in process.
Sure. And look, it's going to take you some time. I'm sure you've formulated some early opinions, but I'm not going to press you.
I have. Yeah. I'll tell you guys off the air. I don't want to spoil it on.
Yeah. We'll talk about that off air. But I'll give you an early opinion that came out today from Dan Quinn because he's on the Sports Junkies, and they did a little word association thing with the top three guys. Just they said their names. What's a word that comes to mind? So he said Williams. What he said was DC. So that's actually not that impressive. Okay, he's from DC.
He's from DC. That's not telling us anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Then he's Drake May, he said athletic. But with Jaden Daniels, he said game changer.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, game changer means a lot, right? Like now that kind of tells you this might be where he's starting to think.
The history of the NFL is littered with coaches who take underdeveloped quarterbacks and think they can coach them up. Now, I have not watched Daniel's film yet, so I'm not making a comment on his abilities. Okay.
Sure.
But when I hear that kind of thing, that automatically makes me nervous.
I can understand it making you nervous. I can also understand a lot of people who get pretty excited by that because I've watched Diggs. He is very exciting to watch at times. So was Robert Griffin, and we know how that turned out.
The one thing with Daniels is why I'm actually looking forward to Steve coming out with all this, because the one thing with Daniels, he's a guy that, because I think it was Mark Bullock did a breakdown of someone else, and they talk about him, and one of his one of the knocks to say is that he's a one read guy, but they broke down many plays where he was more than just a one read quarterback.
Sure.
When it came to situations, he went through certain progressions, stuff like that, but see, out of the top 3 quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels so far anyway has been the one guy with the least red flags outside of his size. That's always going to be a concern, of course. There's red flags, especially with Drake May is the most polarizing one of the 3. Period.
You think so?
Yeah, it's like to me anyway, because every time they talk about him, they talk about he's got the arm strength, he's athletic, and he can make all the throws, but then he gets real complacent a lot of times. He's very inconsistent. He can be volatile with his passes. It's like sure. he's the one that's all over the place. He's the one that scares me the most.
Interesting. I mean, we're gonna get in depth on these guys.
Yeah.
In another, is that next week or the week after?
No, it's a couple. It's toward the end of the, because I need some more time to get into it.
I don't have our agenda.
I also want to have the combine get over with, and the pro days
so you have
get
over with.
Sure. Yeah,
I get that. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we're gonna talk in depth. I find it interesting that you feel that way, Dave. To me, Williams is that guy, but we'll get into all that later. The only other tidbit that Adam Peters has kind of let out there that I thought was interesting was that he seems to be hesitant to say they're going to be big spenders in free agency, which I understand they want to build through the draft. I think you have to spend, at least in certain areas in this free agent class.
I think he's full of crap.
Yeah,
personally.
It
well,
could be
for one thing,
GM
listen,
speak.
They kind of have to spend some money. They can't not spend money.
Right.
There is technically a minimum, that they'd be below. I think so.
85% of the total every 3 years.
Yeah, don't quote me on the number, but there's a number. So I think that's garbage. I mean, if you look like somebody like the Packers, they have gone minimal, okay, but I don't know if they're really going to go that minimal. To me, if they use the draft to kind of fill in the gaps, the free agency to fill in the gaps, that's appropriate. But I don't think they should just not sign. You have money. If there's a player that fits, do it.
Yeah.
You
also have so many holes where you need to fill in a couple of these spots. You're not going to be able to use the draft for everything.
Not this year. There's not enough.
I just think he's just going to be cautious on who he's loading the money to, which is probably no surprise to anyone to hear. But I think it's not going to be one of the things where, like Mike Evans, everyone wants Mike Evans, but he's 29 years old? Or 30 years old? You're not going to pay $23 million what Spotrac has for him a year for a guy who's 30 years old on a team that's rebuilding. Granted, we don't need a receiver, but still.
But you're right. I mean, that's not a good strategy. Right. You want to find somebody young who can build with the team. Mike Evans is a guy you bring in for a team that's almost there.
Yeah.
Correct.
And generally I do think you guys are right about that, but there are exceptions. Like I did a full mock off season, just was bored one day. And one guy who I kind of honed in on for a very logical reason was Bobby Wagner, who is a free agent with Seattle. He still wants to play, apparently. He's 33 at middle linebacker. But he was under Dan Quinn back in the day when Seattle was the Legion of Boom. I'm not saying you're bringing him in for more than a 1-year thing. I'm saying you need a middle linebacker. He should have some familiarity with how Dan Quinn's going to want to call this thing. It might make sense to bring him in, and then, he's there, you start developing a rookie underneath him.
I'm just appreciative of the fact that you cared so much to do that, yet simultaneously did not care enough to write that up and publish it. the masses to see. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I could find it and republish it. It's fun. It wouldn't take too long.
Don't worry about the site. It's okay. Just have fun and do your thing, and forget about the hog site.
That's fine.
It's not like that's evergreen where we couldn't have used it on a day like Wednesday when because of some stuff we didn't have a post. Gee. Don't worry about it, Alex. It's okay.
I'll do another one and I'll post it on the hog size evergreen.
Okay, very good.
If you want. But that there are ways to even bring in older guys is my point. Like I'm not opposed to I don't need the over the hill gang, but like one or two veteran presences. This team needs some leadership anyway. Let's be honest. They lack a veteran leader on a lot of spots, honestly.
They had some people with some bad attitudes last year, like looking at you, John Allen.
Yeah, let's be honest.
For example,
John Allen is meant to be the leader. It's not his personality. He's not going to be the guy who comes in and says everyone needs to work out harder. That's just not who he is.
Even if he was that at one point in time, he had a bad attitude last year, acting like something was wrong.
Think winning 4 games probably gives everyone a bad attitude.
Well, I know, but I mean, he didn't handle it well.
No, he did not. He did not.
That was kind of one of the reasons why I hated to see Montez Sweat go, because although he may not have been an elite rusher, the one thing he was a good locker room presence.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't hear him complain about anything. When he was just a really, really good player, good teammate, everything. It was almost like Terry McLaurin on the defensive side in many ways.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, you're in Washington. It's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I mean, what do you expect to happen? It's Washington, D.C.
Well, one of those things that I think fans especially overlook is you always need certain personality types in every locker room, and you need them just like in your office, honestly. You need people who are natural leaders. You need people who are natural, like, second-in-command types who are like, yeah, this is what he wants us to do. Let's do it. You need that
doers, guy. And you need the run-of-the-mill doers.
Right, you need those. And you need the class clown. You need somebody who can break the tension every once in a while.
There's not a thing with lawyers and class clown, okay? That's not – the two things do not mix well.
No, I'm sure they don't mix well, and that's why everyone hates lawyers.
People are amazed at how boring legal departments / law firms are.
I just did a 16-hour event about the legal department here. Oh, and there's something I got to talk about with you after the show.
All right.
Well, yeah.
Let's do it after.
Nothing government secrets. Just something. It's more personal stuff.
Okay.
But yeah.
Let's just do it now in front of all these people.
Nah. It might still get me in a little trouble. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, there are certain personality types you want around every locker room to be successful.
Yes.
And we've been lacking in that number one guy, that alpha guy, especially on defense, but on offense too, honestly. Who's been the alpha?
Nobody.
Yeah. Terry's good for the wide receivers, but
he's the quiet performer type, though. He's not a upfront leader.
Yeah. He doesn't scare people any.
Well, you don't even need to necessarily scare people, but
True.
He's not a vocal, verbal, out front leader type.
Mm-hmm.
He's the type that people respect because he's a professional and he's the best player probably on the team.
Absolutely.
People respect him, but he's not the rah, let's go get him guy.
Yeah. So when it comes to
he's
free
not like what
agency,
DeAngelo Hall was. DeAngelo Hall was that.
Yes.
He was that outspoken leader. He was a guy that performed. He was just everything to that team. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we don't have.
Yes.
D'Angelo Fletcher back in the day.
Yeah.
Many others.
Yeah, a couple others. I even think Santana Moss had that, honestly.
Oh, he definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about him a little earlier. All right, so why don't we shift gears to free agency a little? Because we briefly touched on, there's not that much coming out of Indianapolis yet. We'll get more probably later this week, and especially this weekend when the actual combine physical stuff goes on, the Underwear Olympics stuff. So why don't we talk about free agency? We wanted to talk about offensive linemen in free agency, and honestly, if there's a place where I think they need to spend big, offensive line is going to be pretty high on the list for me. So There's a lot of good lineman options out there. Maybe not as far as tackles. In like elite left tackles don't hit free agency.
You can never find an elite left tackle in free agency.
No. But there's several good interior guys. A couple good guys who might be good right tackle candidates. So let's dive into it a little. Steve, you said you have.
Well, this is Dave's thing.
Okay.
We all kind of break these up, and Dave has offensive line, so let's hand it to him to.
Okay, Dave, do you want to cover some of the names that stood out to you?
Well, if I go with one that stood out the most, I would have to go with Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams at Cincinnati. He was their first round pick 4 years ago, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
But he was projected as a left tackle. He's been kind of bounced back and forth between left and right, but the only problem with him is that playing the tackle position, from everything that I've kind of seen, is that he tends to get a little hands, a little grabby. He's not real. He's an athletic tackle, but he doesn't use his feet very well apparently. So he gets caught up with speed rushers. If he shifts him more to the interior side, the guard, I think that's where he fits the best. I think he played a few games with Cincinnati like that as well. But he's the one name that I think that under the right coaching, you could kind of take over Wiley's spot if and when they release him, or hopefully when they release him. I mean, he's a guy who could slide in right there at the right-hand side. That's the one name that kind of jumps out the most. And plus, he's 26 and only gets you about 15. Spotrac has him in a market value of almost $15 million a year, which, I mean, for a starting right tackle is not bad.
No, and if he can lock down that spot for 4 or 5 seasons at 26 years old, that's not bad at all.
Absolutely.
Did you say 15 million?
That's what Spotrac.
I thought I was looking Jonah Williams, right? I mean, I see
him at 10.
I see him at 10.8. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they. Now this is from an older article I had, unless they have recently adjusted.
They've adjusted. Okay.
Maybe they've adjusted it.
It's either way, it's legit starter money for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm fine paying that if it works out. Personally,
absolutely.
I would think that's exactly what you want. So that's one name. I assume, Dave, you were kind of looking at a lot of younger guys, right?
On the most part. I mean, if I had to jump out with an older guy, I would jump more in towards of Donovan Smith out of Kansas City. He was their left tackle, but I honestly don't think Kansas City's going to let him go anyway. I think he played well last year, and they can't afford to let him walk. He's going to be demanding. Even though Spotrac doesn't have an average annual salary when I wrote this, I don't know if that's changed or not.
It hasn't. But they still don't have it.
Yeah. And but the only thing with him, he's a natural left tackle, and he's kind of like what we already have in Charles Leno Jr. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's really going to be that much of an upgrade if you go after him. So I don't really see that.
I mean, I think the biggest name on the market is Tyron Smith.
Yeah.
Dallas probably isn't going to let him go. I mean, he's 33. No. I would assume Dallas wouldn't want to let him go, but that would be the star of the class. But I think that would be a really bad mistake for a team like Washington to shell out for that, because he's going to want huge money, number one. Number two, he's 33. I think you got to draft a left tackle to go with the brand new quarterback. You got to get a young franchise left tackle.
And while I agree they should, I also don't think there's a urgent need to. Some people are desperately like, release Leno right now. I think, one, he's under contract. He's at least an average player. Don't jump the gun and release him until you bring somebody in-house that you think can replace him. Or you're even competent. Like, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, that means that left tackle's not coming until round 2.
Which means he's probably not going to be a star left tackle.
And it probably means that you're going to need to develop him for at least a season. So, you could get him some play time, sure, but...
I think Leno is average.
Yeah.
An average starter. He's not great.
He's the definition of an average tackle.
In terms of Washington's tragedy of an offensive line, he's the least of the tragedies, I would say.
I would say it's him and then
Sam
when
Cosmi.
healthy Cosmi. Yeah. So the one name that and there's a couple of good centers, honestly, but Connor Williams is the name that kind of stands out to me in the free agent group, and we desperately need to find a new center because I think they have had what 4 centers play last year.
They've had all the centers.
Yeah, and none of them played exceptionally well.
No.
It would be smart to get a guy like that who's 26. It means you can have him develop with your quarterback, and that quarterback center relationship is important. People sometimes overlook that, but that's the man who that quarterback sticking his hand right on his butt, 70 times a game.
I mean, they may enjoy it. Again, to each their own.
Well, I think that's why guys play shotgun so much now, right?
Is that what Matt Ioannidis did with you? I mean, behind closed doors?
Well, that's defense, man. Totally different game.
True. Now, they've got Connor Williams. Spotrac's got Connor Williams at $13.5 million, which is a lot. But,
yeah.
But
you're talking about a top-end starting center.
Right.
So it makes sense. I mean, there's a couple other guys, if you look down the list of Spotrac's centers who are also around that age, probably could be good starters. Brewer from Tennessee, for example. But I think if they were to come out of free agency with one interior lineman, ideally a center probably, and a new right tackle, I'd be over the moon. I think that's, 2 starters that desperately need to be found quickly.
Were there any other names you wanted to go over, Dave?
There's actually one. I actually didn't have it in my article. I just kind of looked on a site for offensive lineman. A name that comes here is this ad gets out of my way here. Sorry about that.
I'm not familiar with the guy by the name of ad gets out of the way.
You know what? He's a sleeper.
Dude, these names get weirder and weirder.
It does, yeah.
But he's actually an undrafted free agent. He's a priority 1 free agent.
Ah.
That's draft. So I'll address that one later.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike Onwenu, he's a guard. He played 4 years experience. He was out of New England. And he has Spotrac has him at $13.5 million annual average annual salary. And I don't know a great deal about him, but they have him in statistical comparisons like a Ben Powers and a Jawan Taylor, which actually are, I believe they're both ranked top 10 in terms of guards in the league. And I don't know how I missed him in that article, but that's a guy right there. You could probably really jump on and focus on, shore up that other end over Cosme on the left guard on the other side right there. I mean, that's a guy 25 years old, going to be 26 this year. I mean, that's a guy you could take long term if you wanted to.
Yeah,
I think what people need to remember here is this, because there's a lot of names, and we frankly don't have time to go over every single one of them.
Yeah,
I understand this. The offensive line will be drastically different next year, number one. Number two, you will not recognize a couple of these names. They're not going to draft 5 offensive linemen. They're going to draft 1 or 2 of them. They're not going to spend $85 trillion bringing in all the top offensive line. They may sign one big name one, if possible, but they're going to bring guys like the guy Dave just mentioned, which is a decent name. That guy is cheap. Onwenu, he's cheap. He's not going to be on an all-pro team. Doesn't mean he can't play. It could be a productive member of the line, but you're just going to have to get used to out there the idea that Washington is going to bring some dudes in, and you're not going to have heard of them.
Yeah,
that's my advice, or my thoughts rather.
I agree with that. And since we do have a lot of other things,
I would like to say that why don't they try to sign Jason Kelce so maybe we can get some Taylor Swift action in the stadium. That'd excite everybody, wouldn't it?
Steve, he's an Eagle.
So
you don't want that. You don't
listen.
Want that.
Isn't Taylor Swift worth it?
You don't want that bad juju.
She's dating the brother.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe they're Eskimo brothers. No, I don't even want to go there. No, stop.
No.
No. Did I really say that?
Yes,
out
you
loud?
did.
Yeah,
okay. You did.
Out loud. Yes, you did.
I'm actually just surprised Steve knows that term. That reference.
I do know that term.
Yeah.
It's a legal term.
It is a legal term.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on.
I think for the record, Jason Kelce, I believe, is married, and I'm joking. Just FYI.
Yes.
Yes.
I think we all know that.
No, I was being serious.
Yep. We're just having fun. It's fine. So the other part about the offensive line, the draft, which we're also going to talk about offensive linemen in the draft. This is a really deep draft class. Is when it comes to linemen, is what the draft experts are saying, at least. I was looking at a couple different sites before the show. CBS, I was just looking at offensive tackles. There's 13 offensive tackles that CBS has ranked in the top 100 players in this class. 10 are considered first to second rounders. So, like, this... Now, that's just... First rounder does not necessarily mean they're going to be a star or a starter. I get that. But, Steve, you did that study a while back. Line is one of the safer spots to project out, right? Like, instead of a 20% hit rate, you get up to like a 50% hit rate in the first round.
Yeah, don't quote me on the numbers. I don't remember, but
it's much better. It's much higher.
It was a little better. Yeah, it was a little better.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. So I've got. Well, Dave, you want to give your thoughts on the draft class?
The draft class, yes. Now, as far as like the top tackles, obviously we're not unless we use that number 2 pick or trade back and get one of these top offensive tackles. I really don't see us getting obviously any one of them.
Well, let's tell them who they
are.
One
anyway. Name. Okay, that's fine. So you have from Notre Dame, Joe Alt, 6'8", 315. He kind of swaps back and forth between him and the Penn State Alamuaye
Fashuano.
Yes. Who's from Penn State.
Dave's a Nittany Lions fan, and he struggles.
Yeah, I always struggle with that. That's okay. But those two are kind of interchangeable in the top tackles. But Joe Alt has been having more steam lately. So of course the combine could change all that. So.
Well, you left out J.C. Latham from Alabama.
Yeah.
He would be the other one.
Him and also Talisa Fuaga out of Oregon State.
Yeah.
As well. Yes.
Like, I don't think Washington would be in a position to get Latham. Certainly not Latham, and maybe Alt. Yeah. It depends on who does the ranking who does the analysis of which one of these guys are ranked, higher. But I think Latham, Fashuano, Alt, Fuaga, those 4 guys are kind of your top ones.
And then there's Mims from Georgia. They could all be in the first round. They were probably all going in the first round. The thing that surprised me is Latham is very highly ranked and he's a right tackle. Usually right tackles are not first round caliber guys.
I mean, look, Trent Williams played right tackle in college, remember?
I forgot that. Did he?
Yeah. Oh. For a long time he did, yes.
Okay. I did not realize that.
I agree. It's not normal, but I mean, Trent, it's typically
first round means left tackle.
And usually these guys don't have usually they've played some of both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure they get moved around. You put your best 5 out there, as Robbie used to always say.
Now, and I'll say that I trust Lance Zierlein's opinion quite a bit. Lance Zierlein has Latham as right tackle or a guard.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Now the one name that sticks out that could easily come out and slip to the early second round, but he's projected potential late first round is Jordan Morgan out of Auburn, 6'4", 312 pounds. He's a guy that could be right there in position for them to grab. He's more of a right tackle though. He can certainly play left tackle. They have him down as strengths as he's very explosive at the snap, and he's great in change of direction with his footwork, and he does a great job of maintaining leverage. He has great lateral movement to match explosive edge rushers and so forth. The biggest thing that he has and what he lacks is ideal arm length, and that can affect his leverage at times. It struggles in a lot of zone run schemes where he's going to have issues with. So. As far as left tackle,
would you care, before you move on, would you care to take a guess at who Lance Zierlein has compared Jordan Morgan to in the NFL?
Don't tell me Wiley.
No.
Okay.
I watched
probably
a little
Morgan
bit of
Moses,
him today. Is Brandon Scherf?
Charles Leno.
Charles Leno? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we could get rid of Leno to
there
draft
you
his literal replacement.
His
That
younger,
would go well. Yes.
his younger version.
Yes.
I mean, look, he does have a little bit of a short arm thing if you watch him. You're
It's not
right.
a Tyrannosaurus Rex, though.
No.
Right.
The thing that I noticed right away though is he kind of stutter steps a lot when I was watching little highlights of him today. Just bored watching some highlights.
I'm sure the federal government is happy knowing that you're watching.
Dude, I was sitting
highlights.
in an 8-hour broadcast of a bunch of lawyers talking. What else do you think I'd do?
I don't want to hear your lawyers talk for 8 hours. You kidding me?
Yeah, it was a long day.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So who else, Dave?
All right, so I'm going to jump away from the tackles here for a second, because this guy Graham Barton out of Duke, they have him listed as like the number 10th tackle. But the one thing that he jumps the ranking their ranking when it comes to guard. I mean, this is a guy who's got an extremely high football IQ. He has great explosion at the snap, maintains great leverage through his blocks. He doesn't just hit, make contact, and maintain. His lower leg power really drives through the blocks, and he maintains a great. I'm sorry. He works great within space. So when he's tight, what they call blocking in the phone booth.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard that phrase or not. But with him in a tight space and within the interior line, he works very, very well with them. Now him as well also lacks the arm length, but they kind of project him more in the guard anyways. So that kind of takes away from that a little bit anyways. That's not as much of a concern, but him right there, he will sit in an ideal spot to be an interior line who can also move down into center as well because of his recognition post snap and recognizing the defensive schemes ahead of him, and he's able to make those calls at the line. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move on him potentially as a center out of this draft, where some sites actually have him as the number 1 center in this draft.
Interesting.
Zerline, first of all, says it was a quote pleasurable experience watching his tape, which is a weird thing to say, but Zerline's got him as a quote early starter with Pro Bowl potential at center. Yeah. By the way, they listed him as a center there, and they mentioned the short arms. But I think he looks to me like a guy who smart, maybe lacking in a little bit of strength, maybe, but great technique, great attitude, great tenacity, smart. So yeah that's you can't have it all in these ratings. And this guy, there's plenty of people who may not have checked every box necessarily, but ended up being quality pros, and that might be this guy.
So, Dave, do you have anyone else that stands out to you?
Out of Kansas, out of Kansas State, would be Cooper Beebe at 6'4", 335 pounds. He's another guy that works very well in tight spaces, and he has good technique, although he could still improve that in for pass protection. But what he has is he has a really good upper body strength, and he engages his blocks very, very well, and he's very, very quick. He's very quick to the first contact, and he holds his blocks very well. Now, the one thing he does too, he tends to lean and lunge a bit too much forward. And by the way, I'm getting all this from Draft Buzz. I like using Draft Buzz for a lot of this for the offensive linemen, because they're usually pretty well on the mark with all this. And so in pass protection, with him kind of lunging forward and kind of getting a little handsy at times, that's where he may have his issues. But he's another guy kind of stands, especially as a run blocker, and he's athletic to where he's able to pull and do a lot of those protecting the screen in the screen game and so forth.
I mean, hopefully Washington drafts one of these guys. I mean, please, 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 Washington leadership, do not do stupid things in the draft.
Can I say something? I want to know if you guys think I'm crazy or not.
Sure.
I would not be upset if I assume we're taking the quarterback at 2. Don't know which.
You have to, yeah.
Yeah. Would either of you be upset if both second-round picks were offensive linemen?
I mean, I wouldn't be upset. First of all,
there's a lot of needs. I know, but
I mean, they really have to find. They almost literally don't have linebackers on the roster,
and they also don't have defensive ends.
Right. But they desperately need offensive linemen.
For as deep as this draft is on the interior, I would love to see something to where they use like that second round pick on Jeremiah Trotter, right?
Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Yeah, for someone like that, and then take that second round pick and then move back in the third a little more, because you can get really good guys like a Christian Monahan from Boston College, or even like a Javion Cohen out of Miami, who would be really good quality interior lineman, and even position yourself for one of the top centers like a Jackson Powers Johnson. With that one other early second round pick you would still have, even if you move back a little bit.
I'll say this. Yes, there's a lot of needs. Again, they almost literally don't have linebackers. They don't have defensive ends. But if you're going to draft your franchise quarterback of the future, you really kind of need to find him a left tackle.
Yeah.
You really kind of do. To the point where I would almost be tempted to trade back up into the first round if like the right guy would happen to be there. They really I would prioritize of all those needs. I would prioritize offensive line generally because of the new quarterback, and maybe you can get away with Leno being in there for another year or whatever because you desperately need a center or a guard or whatever. But more I think about it, I think that next pick needs to be offensive line. You really have to find a starter.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll find a left tackle at
maybe not
early second. Like
maybe
you
not.
said, you might have. If one guy falls, and I doubt it'll be Alt or the kid from Penn State. They're not getting out of the top 10.
It's not in the offensive line. You guys are right to think it's because Leno is there. Leno's not terrible.
Right. He's also not elite.
No, but maybe. But I think it's really important to find that, especially that tackle.
Yeah.
Well, see, unfortunately, and we kind of touched on it already, is the fact that after you get past the top 4, top 3, top 4. You start dealing with issues in terms of lateral movement and short arms and other issues with leverage concerns like that and everything, to where you're going to have to move almost all the way up to almost the mid-first round if you're going to do that. It's going to take a lot to move up there.
And you'd have to get lucky that Mims or Fagata or whatever, Waga, they have to have fallen.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, maybe you find a team who really wants Jonathan Allen, and you take Jonathan Allen, your second-round pick, and you jump way up there and grab that left tackle. Maybe. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Maybe.
That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah. Now, that said, if they get Morgan from Arizona, who I think will be there in the second round, I don't think he's a left tackle, but I think you could plug him in as a guard, and he'll be a starter this year. You could probably plug him in at right tackle. So I think there's options.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We should move on to talk about some of the stadium news that came out this week, because there was that too. First of all, related to the stadium stuff, the players survey, second annual players survey, came out. Shockingly, Washington ranked 31st or 32nd in almost every category.
Get it right. Yeah,
they were dead last in almost every category. They were towards the bottom. Now, the caveat on the player survey, and I'm not going to go through all the grades. One, I don't have in front of me. Two, it's just time consuming. The survey was done in October. So, like, at the very early point in the season. So a lot of the stuff is still on old ownership in my mind. It's not on the Harris Group.
All of it would be on the old ownership. You kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's things here and there that...
But say this, though, okay? So this survey is a survey of facilities. They're not evaluating the coaches, the owners. It's of the physical, actual facilities. And Washington's facilities are terrible. That's not news.
They do training staff and like the gym
True, that's
staff.
part of it. But for the most of it are facility related stuff and like quality of life stuff and things like that.
Right.
And it is not news to suggest that the Washington Redskins, run by the Tiny Tyrant, were terrible in every respect. And if you didn't expect Washington to be number 32, you have not been paying attention for the past 2.5 decades.
Right. So related to that, the first bit of news that has come out is that the team is putting $75 million into upgrades to FedEx. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not called FedEx Field anymore. They don't have a name for it. Stadium is the name of the stadium.
So, in terms of stadium naming rights deals, I have done these.
Okay, let's talk about that first, and then we'll touch on money.
So these, first of all, these deals are different for every single one of them, okay? Mm-hmm. But what happens is the entity that's going to be the name enters into an agreement with the owner of the stadium that says, I will pay you X amount of dollars per month or per year in exchange for you putting the name on the stadium for a term. You could negotiate different outs and different things at different times. You would have to negotiate if the name of the company changes. We can replace the old name with the new name. And so in this case, what has happened was, in this contract, there was an out if the Washington franchise changed ownership, which makes sense because, for those of you paying attention, again, Robert Smith, as the CEO of FedEx, was a former minority partner in Washington. And if you recall, the main reason why the Washington Redskins dumped the classic name for the stupid Commander's name was because of Robert Smith.
Fred Smith.
And so Fred Smith. Yeah. So none of that's a surprise. So this is not totally abnormal. It's not like the thumbing the nose at DC. This is standard contract stuff, basically.
Yeah. And there was 2 years left on the current deal they had with FedEx. The rough math is it was about $8.5 million a year left in terms of what FedEx was paying.
That's not a ton by naming rights.
No. From what I've read, Stephen, you would probably know if this is right. 10 to 20 million range is the norm now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but yeah.
But it's somewhere in that. And
yeah, I think so.
Obviously, I'm assuming it's also the next one is always a little higher than the last one for every stadium, just like with contracts and stuff like that.
The question is going to be who's going to be the new name? Is it going to be any fun ones, or is it going to be some company we've never heard of?
Yeah. So I will shout. I don't remember who posted it, but I'll give a shout out to the best graphic I saw. Spirit Halloween. Halloween taking over FedEx. A Halloween store.
Is that a real store?
Yeah. It's like the cheap Halloween stores that pop up in abandoned malls all the time.
Oh,
cheap. They aren't cheap.
Well, their products are cheap, Dave. They charge you.
Products are cheap. Yes.
Yeah, you're paying $20 for a piece of plastic. I get it, but yeah, that was the top funny thing I saw. Yeah, I assume they're gonna have probably just some big corporate entity. It's not gonna be like.
If you want the legal question, here's the legal question. The stadium is going to be replaced one way or the other in a few years.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, and so will this name transition over to the next stadium? Right. Well, a lot of that matters as to who's going to own the new stadium. You can't have Josh Harris promise he's going to drag this other corporate sponsor over to another stadium when if the stadium's going to be in DC, he's not going to own it. For sure. If the stadium's going to be in Maryland, he's not going to own it. So it may be that they get kind of a crappy deal.
Yeah.
Because there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any certainty on how much ownership they'll have at the stadium. You're right about that.
Now, the good news is, this ought to affect nobody but Josh Harris and his partners.
Oh, yeah.
It really doesn't matter. I'd rather name it Jack Kent Cooke Stadium and be done with it.
Yeah, I don't care what it's actually named in the end. In fact, the only thing that I'm hoping for is they get rid of the stupid FedEx colors on the stuff they've covered the seats with, at the top of the stadium. Those are awful colors. Let's be honest. It's like purple, orange, and green all around burgundy and gold stadium. It's very weird.
Let's go for, why don't we go for mauve and dark green next time?
Yeah. Yes. You love your mauve. You really do.
Oh, I'm a mauve fan. I'm a mauve aficionado.
Mr. Mauve is what we call Steve behind the back. But I mean, yeah, I don't really care. I've always kind of jokingly tweeted at who's the kicker who took over Five Guys? Why am I blanking on his name all of a sudden?
Mark Mosley?
Yeah, Mark Mosley. His son is on Twitter. And I always say you should get your dad to name it Five Guys Field.
Five Guys Stadium. Nothing like naming a football stadium a stadium to advertise athletic prowess. Let's name that after a hamburger shop.
Well, but it's a local thing that went national. It would make.
Five Guys is local to Virginia?
Yeah, it started in Arlington.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. The first 5 stores were all in Northern Virginia. So yeah. But yes, that would be my vote if I had a vote, and I don't.
I think it's kind of funny.
It is funny. It's funny. Also, their burgers are delicious. Now that
do they really need to advertise like that though?
No. Does anyone actually need to advertise, Steve?
No.
I got news for you. They don't.
Not like that.
Yeah, right.
No. I don't know why stadium naming rights are worth anything. Most of us just make fun of you for it. Corporations.
Actually, truthfully, the Hogsty Stadium would be my first choice.
Hogsty Stadium would not be bad. I wonder how much we could offer.
We could scrape together a few $100 between us.
Yeah.
Would that
why
do
not?
it?
Why don't we just go Command Central?
Oh
no! Are you kidding? You're off the show, Dave. You are fired.
Dave, you have to mute your mic for 10 seconds.
You're just trying to irritate me now.
10-second penalty for Dave.
I was just picking the right moment to throw it out there.
The naming thing is interesting. The impact on the next stadium is going to be interesting because obviously they're not going to make 2028 now for the new stadium because they haven't figured anything out. But it's going to be within the next 5 years probably. So it's a short-term naming deal if it's just
it's not
stadium.
Totally impossible. They'd have to. I mean, this construction for the stadium will be 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it's 2024 now. Could they work all that out in 2 years? I mean, it would be really tough fit realistically. They could, given the right circumstance, but it would be a really tough ask.
Yeah. I mean, they're way past the red line.
Well, they're not way past the red line. They're past the red line, but they're not way past the red line.
But they're past by what, like a year or two at this point?
Well, I mean, because they don't even have a property identified.
Yeah.
Or funding or anything. That's the hard part. You know.
Yeah. But so it's a short-term naming contract, which is unusual too. I assume they don't normally happen for like 4 or 5 seasons.
No.
So that would be another factor. But yeah, that'll be the stuff that. Dave,
what's the possibility of them finding a partner that would have, with the naming rights would be the same partner or part of the partnership group that would help to finance whatever future stadium they have, and they made that kind of a deal now. Is that unheard of? Is that something?
What do you mean? Say that again.
Like, for instance, you go out there and you find a partner or partner group or a partnership group that, will bring you in. You could be part of the new stadium or deal. We'll name the stadium with you guys now, but we'll have the financing through you. You'll have, or I'm probably saying it all wrong.
No, I think what you're saying is, could they find a name sponsor who would also finance construction?
Yes.
It sounds like a terrible idea. Like something I would never, ever recommend ever. I get your point, but the simple fact of the matter is that construction is way more expensive, dramatically more expensive than a stadium naming rights deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And also, like, the people who would do major financing like that is like Bank of America.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, I think Bank of America does have a stadium already, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think that you could wrap that up in the calculus hypothetically, I guess, if you wanted, but I don't know. I don't think that's a thing.
I was just curious. I know you know better than
It's an interesting thought, but you got to think like $1 billion for stadium construction financing.
Right.
Not like $100 million in a, $200 million in a 15-year naming rights deal or whatever.
So,
Right.
Steve, let me adjust what Dave is saying, though. What if they were to go to, not Bank of America, let's say, I'll use the bank I use, PNC Bank, and say,
Okay.
we name it after you. We also will, in turn, promise to finance through you as part of this deal. Is that as crazy?
Well, so no bank gives loans, even major national banks do not give billion-dollar loans. Okay.
Okay.
So how that would work is typically you have one bank that acts as a lead agent, and then there'll be like 20 banks involved,
Sure.
all giving small amounts of money. No bank is going to take that huge of the biggest loan I ever saw for one bank is.
If you don't want to say, because we're on.
Yeah, I kind of don't, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
But
$1 billion is not a thing. Like only the federal government can print that much money, and they're really good at printing it.
So I'll just use an imaginary number, and let's say it's 100 million is what
Okay.
they're comfortable with, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, like I said, you're kind of asking the same question Dave did. Hypothetically, you could do this. I mean,
Yeah.
if you wanted, I don't know why you would though.
No,
But
I think the most realistic is what you stated at the beginning. You get the naming rights for this stadium, and if we can work it out for the next stadium,
That's hard to do. I
Even
don't know
that's
how
hard
we
to
could.
do, yeah.
I mean, it would be really hard to put that into naming rights contract documents because you don't have any control over it. You could
Mhm.
say, yeah, sure. If I had, to the extent we have control, I will negotiate with you first. I mean, you could say that, but what's that worth?
Right.
You know,
A right of first refusal, not much.
But if you think about it, so the naming rights partner needs to pay the stadium. They're looking to pay the owner, right? So
Right.
they're looking for income of $10-20 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
But so if you bring your lender in on it, all you're really doing is kind of subtracting from the amount that owe them, and it just doesn't, I don't think.
We talk about the payment, but putting a new sign up there costs money too. There's all those factors in this as well. So I'm sure they'll have somebody, but I'll be surprised if it's as big of a number as some of the higher
Not
end
for
ones.
3 years or whatever, 4 years,
Yeah.
5 years. They'll somebody will do it for sure.
Sure, someone will do it.
But this is not something to get wrapped up around the axle, people, because it affects nobody but the owner.
Right.
Our buddy Rick Snyder suggested Ben Chilibol. Ben Chilibol doesn't have that kind of money. Five Guys at least has that money. I don't think.
Do they though?
Well, they have stores in all 50 states at this point. They're national. I don't think any fast food chain sponsors a stadium though, do they?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know of one.
My leading contender is the Hogseye Stadium.
Hogseye Stadium. I will only do it if they change the team name to the Hogseye.
There you
go.
Or what? You have a better one than that?
No, I was going to just reiterate my last one. That's all.
No, bad, Dave. Bad.
That is not. No, that is. You're going to be off the show if you repeat that.
So one thing that the team also put out related to the stadium is that they are doing some upgrades. The team moved some of their corporate offices out of the stadium, for those who didn't know, and they're going to be turning that into a super luxury suite section, which is interesting, but not that important, honestly, to most of us because we can never afford it. But what they will fix is the leaking sewage and the fact that the hot water heaters didn't work at one point. And that's, I think, what actually should matter to us as fans, is that our players should be allowed to take a shower after a football game.
I think more importantly, the fans shouldn't have raw sewage dumped on them.
I mean, can we make it only on the Eagles and Cowboys sections?
No. I do not want to be blamed for giving somebody Giardia from having sewage dumped on them. No, we cannot.
Fine.
Even Eagles fans don't deserve it. They do deserve it, but I don't want to be blamed for it. I don't want to be blamed for it.
They're the ones who brought the Giardia in, Steve.
Well, that is true, but I'm not going to be blamed for it.
Fine. That's the lawyer in you coming out, not the fun-loving side of you.
I'm not responsible for a premises liability defect associated with your failure to fix the sewer pipes. I'm sorry.
But it is interesting that they're still willing to put that. I mean, that's $75 million serious money.
It would be nice if I walk out of the bathroom, even after wash hands and all, I feel dirtier leaving it than I did when I first walked in it. It'd be nice if they get those bathrooms straightened up for one.
Yeah.
A little more variety in the club level section for food would be another one.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
you don't like going to that,
Dave. First world problems.
Well, that's the thing, though. The food there, I don't complain about the food per se, because I mean the chicken tenders and the fries, they're usually typically pretty good. The hot dogs, all that. I mean, everything they have.
Just don't go to the hill
pretty
country.
Good.
That's in there. That's not fresh.
Yeah, right.
It's just all Airmark. I got news for you. It's all Airmark.
Oh, sure. But it'd be nice if they did maybe one game. Okay, here's some cheeseburgers. Another game, do like little mini like sliders or something like that or whatever. Just something.
Which is just a small cheeseburger.
So far, you haven't named a single thing that I would.
Like what's that?
So far, you haven't named a single thing that I would eat.
Well, chicken salad. What do you want?
Can you come up with a health food option?
Health food option, and I'm sure they have plenty of lettuce for you.
Lettuce is just empty calories.
Oh, I mean, throw some pepper on it.
I stumped you. See, didn't take much.
Okay. How about some roasted red and green peppers with some fried onions?
I don't like peppers.
See, there's nothing we can do.
So what we really need for Steve is a sweet green or a chopped, like a salad place. That's what he needs, unfortunately.
Just give me a plain chicken place.
Yeah.
We're not putting anything on the chicken at all. We're just slapping it on a grill.
And just grilled chicken, not fried. Yeah.
No, just grilled chicken with nothing on it at all.
Yeah. Yep, that's what Steve did. Not even a bun. He's just gonna walk around eating a piece of chicken.
Yes. I don't want the bun. No, I don't want the bun. It's too many carbs and starches.
You know what you would really enjoy, Steve? Smoked turkey leg. We need a turkey leg place.
I don't like smoked stuff though.
Oh well,
I'm picky, man. I'm telling you.
You are the most picky eater we know.
But you throw in my dietary restrictions and it really gets narrow. I was picky before my dietary restrictions.
Yeah, that is true. So let's see. We talked about the name change thing.
Alex, remember everything on the list.
I got one more thing, and that's that the RFK Stadium bill passed the House today, which is 1/3 of the way through the government. That means. And it passed pretty well, 347 to 53. This bill does not say that they're building a stadium. Let's be clear. It just says that the D.C. government can do what they want with the land within certain restrictions.
Well, and basically what they're doing, what's happening here is it's the bill, which only went through the House, would allow the D.C. government to take administrative control of the land. It is not conveying fee simple title to DC.
Right.
It's a 99. In the article I read is from the Washington Post, and it doesn't go into specifics too much, like a level that I would need as a real estate expert. But it's a 99-year agreement that somehow turns administrative control over to DC to allow. This is the important part: mixed use development.
Right.
What mixed use development means to the uninitiated is a combination of commercial and residential uses, and including a stadium. So it
does specify including a stadium in there.
Yeah, and so that would allow DC the option of doing that. Now that's no guarantee that DC would want to do it necessarily, but it's this first step of what would be needed to allow that to happen.
It basically gives them a lot of local control over the land, which they haven't.
It gives them local control. They would, if this bill got through the Senate and then the walking corpse that hypothetically is in charge in the White House, if he signed it, then that would mean that then DC could, if they chose to, build a stadium. This is not providing any money.
Right. In fact, the bill specifies no federal funds.
Thank God.
Will be provided.
Nobody needs to
we're all in favor of that.
Yeah, nobody needs federal funding for a stadium.
No. I dislike state and local funding going to stadiums.
Me too. I don't like any public money in a stadium.
Yeah. You're rich. Build it. That's my philosophy.
Well, I'm not rich.
No, you're not rich. But you know what? If the owners built it with their own money, it would be a little more affordable to put the Hogstye name on the stadium.
Might be less affordable. They're going to need the money.
Well, no, but they're going to build less $3 billion stadiums too.
They'll build a $500 stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be just a tent.
A couple. It's a high school bleachers, and we're good.
The suites will be tents.
Yeah. With fans, we're
I've
gonna have
always said
fans.
the right NFL team you could play in the parking lot of a Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah.
And attract
Well,
people.
we've said that a bunch of times, haven't we? Like,
We've all said that.
yeah. But the fact that this went through with very little opposition, the only real opposition was supposedly a couple Maryland senators are like, well, we don't want to lose the tax base of the team leaving. And I get that. That's what government should be about. Is
The question would be then, in that case, what happens to the FedEx Field structure?
Yeah. Well, that is another.
Nothing
that's a
good.
whole nother chapter of the whole
it
thing.
Is. And RFK,
Right.
for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're tearing down RFK no matter what. So they've earmarked that to happen.
Yeah, you're probably right. But
so.
like FedEx would ultimately have to go one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, it's not like another team's going to use it.
And it's not like you're going to bring Metallica into FedEx when they have a brand new stadium.
No. Well, Metallica doesn't want to go in there now. I mean.
But you get my point.
Yep. Yeah. We all know that's part of it. So it's not over, but that's actually a pretty big step because they've never gotten through this part when Snyder was there.
In the immortal words of Obi-Wan Kenobi, you've taken the first step into a larger world.
Yep.
That's really nerdy.
That was nerdy. Steve with a weird sex reference and a Star Wars reference in one episode, everybody. Congratulations.
This is what we do on the Hog Side. See, I should have done the weird sex reference in my Kermit the Frog voice. That really would have been out there.
You should have done the Obi-Wan Kenobi. Done both.
Oh, God. Obi-Wan Kenobi via Kermit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that those are all, and it doesn't happen by coincidence, all those stadium stories coming out at once. That's planned. Just so everyone remembers. Like, nothing happens in coincidental.
Just remember this. None of this would happen if the Tiny Tyrant was still in charge.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
This team would be talking about relocating if he were still here.
It would. It really would. He would be talking about moving it to San Antonio or Salt Lake City or somewhere, St. Louis.
Yep. And I'm not joking. I think that we would have heard about that by now if he hadn't been kicked out. So
probably it would have certainly been on the table.
Yep.
Or even London.
That's maybe the moral. I don't think Europe is a viable option for the NFL, but that doesn't mean that Dan Snyder wouldn't have thought that.
No,
right.
I mean, he moved to London. He's living.
Well, I think that the NFL, we talked about this on It's Just Business, which is released every other Tuesday, except this week because we had to cancel. But the NFL, I think, would need an NFL division to make it work. That's what I think. You'd have to move 4 teams over there.
Yeah, which would be awful, by the way. I would hate to see that.
Well, then at that point you're dumbing down the talent and stuff. If you're gonna because you're not gonna find 4 teams willing to do that, and so you'd have to do expansion and But I don't know how you could have one team over in Europe and make it equitable and make it work out.
It would unless they played 8 games here, then 8 games there, kind of, or whatever.
Yeah, but who wants to do that? To have the players and employees be away from their families for 2 months at a time? And
I know.
Right.
I know. I've just sat there like you have, I'm sure, and tried to figure out how you'd make it work.
I have.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
You, me, Chris, like all us weird nerd types. That's what we like to do with our free time. We
don't
just
leave
sit there.
Dave out of the nerd thing. He's a part of it too.
I don't know if Dave's a franchise like nerd, like hypothetical.
All I know is I won a gentleman's bet. Someone at work says, the Super Bowl is going to be over at London by 26. I'm like, there's no way.
No.
I mean, maybe the earliest at maybe 30, maybe 2030, maybe. They're going to test the market, probably maybe get a team or a division, like you said, out there first, trying to maybe figure that logistics out first.
Roger
I will go farther than this, okay? The NFL is not going to have a Super Bowl outside of the United States anytime soon. There's too much money involved. And other things, the time would not work out.
I agree with that, but Roger Goodell desperately wants to do it. And
you'd have to have the game. Think about this, because you want the game in prime time in the United States. That is freaking after midnight in Europe. Yeah, okay, for that reason alone, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, it would be terrible. It would be a huge logistical nightmare. So I don't see it either. But Yeah. There's that segment of corporate NFL that just wants to do it no matter what. And I hate them.
Right.
I hate them with every fiber of my being. With the fire of
Along
a
with
thousand suns.
many other things you hate with every fiber of your being.
Yes, that's true. On that note, let's wrap this show up because we're way over time.
On that thought of hate.
Yes. And end the show on a note of rage.
Okay.
Guys, thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you next week as we just read 40 times. That's all we're going to do next show is just read 40 times. So,
over and over and over again.
Yep. All right. We will see you next week.
Later.
Later.